All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, I remember in the immediate aftermath of Michael Jordan's first retirement in 1993, the NBA was in a very awkward position. They were not quite sure how they were going to market the league at that point because the other great players in the league had almost no championship level experience. We have to understand that the previous world champion before the Chicago Bulls, who'd won the title for 3 years in a row, was the Detroit Pistons. And Isaiah Thomas was not someone that they wanted to market. He was pretty much at the end. Before that, you had the Magic Johnsons and the Larry Birds, who had already retired the previous 2 years consecutively. So what was the NBA going to do? They pretty much were going to allow the remaining teams to fight it out for that 1 year while they took their time to figure out what they wanted to do, while they also allowed Michael Jordan to stew in the background as he was, quote unquote, pursuing his baseball career and also trying to escape many of the, quote unquote, gambling allegations that were starting to dog him for the previous 2 years. But at the same time, what were they going to do? You had players like the Charles Barkley, David Robinson, very talented. But how were you going to sell them as the face of the league? Barkley was out of control. David Robinson was, quote unquote, boring. Patrick Ewing was not someone who was particularly marketable. Karl Malone was a country dude. So they had to let things play out. And once again, Shaquille O'Neal was too young at the time. They let things play out. And the team that pretty much came out of nowhere were the Houston Rockets, led by Hakeem Olajuwon, who arguably, in my view, is starting to become one of the most underrated all-time great players in the history of the NBA. He's certainly top 10 in the history of the league, and one can make a very compelling argument that you could consider Hakeem maybe one of the top 5 or 6 greatest players to ever play in the league's history. If you were just going to evaluate him from the defensive perspective, he's probably the greatest defensive player in the modern era of the NBA, just as a defender. That's not even talking about his non-pareil offensive skill set. He was so non-pareil, so immaculate offensively, especially in the execution of his offensive moves, that Kobe Bryant, who's known for his immaculate footwork, went to Hakeem Olajuwon to understand offensive post play at a higher level. LeBron James went to learn from Hakeem Olajuwon, so on and so forth. I bring him up to say this. As great as Hakeem was, he was never going to be the face of the NBA after Michael Jordan left because he did not have what we call today, quote unquote, swag. He didn't have style. He did not have that, quote unquote, charisma, whatever that is. I personally define charisma as a magnetism that's very difficult to explain. Something that draws other people to a person for whatever reason, whether it's their looks, their charm, their demeanor, their personality, their intellect, or maybe a combination of all those things. Whatever it was, Jordan had it, Muhammad Ali had it, O.J. Simpson in his prime, he had it. And in order for you to keep your league moving forward, the best player in your league, you want to have those things. And after Jordan left, they no longer had that anymore. Was it because Hakeem Olajuwon was a quote-unquote African and Michael Jordan was quote-unquote African-American? Was that the difference? I don't think that it was, because you have many other great quote-unquote African-American players after Jordan left who also did not have that certain something, that je ne sais quoi as they call it. But we do know that the cultures are different. Hakeem Olajuwon was different. He was a bit more reserved. He had a stronger culture, that being the quote-unquote West African culture that he was from, the Nigerian culture. Well, he was rooted in certain things that many of our people here in this society are not rooted in. And that made him less marketable. For those of us who are hardcore basketball aficionados and viewers, we say to ourselves, well, who cares about that? But to the league, which is a business, they need you to have that marketability. So the ratings in the NBA took a very steep downturn for those 2 years that Jordan was gone. When he came back, the ratings shot right back up. Why am I bringing all this up? Because the league is about to enter another what I call interregnum period, which pretty much is a lapse in between dynasties, especially when you have a notable player who's been the face of the league for a long period of time, who's about to depart for whatever reason. When we look at LeBron James, he's certainly on the backside of his career. There's no doubt about that. As well as the fact that the Golden State Warriors, who've been the most notable dynasty for the past 5 years, appear to be on their last legs, maybe about to break up. Who knows? So the question is going to start to arise. Who is going to be the face of the NBA for the next 10 years? I'm already on record as stating that in my view it's going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. But Giannis Antetokounmpo is now saying that he has heard that he cannot be the face of the league because he does not have that quote-unquote charisma that quote-unquote American players have. What is that code for? He's saying, I don't have the black American man's swag. That's basically what he's saying. I don't have it and I don't need it because I'm confident in who I am, and if they cannot accept me for me, then I don't want to be the face of the league. That's where he's coming from. So, of course, that has led to a very compelling conversation amongst the panel here at Speak For Yourself. They're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Let's move to Milwaukee, where the Greek Freak has led the Bucks to the NBA's best record so far, and is the front runner for MVP. But even that might not be enough to vault him from superstar status to an even more prominent role in the league. According to Giannis, his background could be holding him back from taking over the NBA. As he explained, people say that I cannot be the face of the league because I'm not American. I don't have the American culture in me.
The translation for that is that I don't have enough swag. That's really what Giannis is saying. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that quote-unquote swag is a two-sided coin.
In me. I sat back and thought about that. Should I have a little bit more American swag? Should I come with a suit to the game? Should I be more Americanized?
No, because most of the top so-called black American players do not come to the game in suits. I honestly don't know what these niggas have on most of the time. Russell Westbrook and James Hardhead and these dudes, I don't know what they're wearing, man. These niggas be showing up to the game with leopard print tights on and stuff. Like, please do not dress like them. You're good with what you're doing, bro.
Americanized, but man, if I can't be the face of the league being me, I don't want to be the face of the league.
I don't blame you, but I don't think that that's something that you're going to have to worry about. I think that the NBA has been trying to globalize the league for a while now. And by the time you're actually a good enough player to take over the mantle of being the best player in the NBA, you're probably going to have to share the quote-unquote duties of being the face of the league with Zion Williamson. That's what I believe. Even though I think that, once again, you have a ways to go when it comes to being the overall best player in the league. Right now, Giannis Antetokounmpo is what I call a force of nature type player. He's a player who can defeat you with his will. But he is going to have to expand his skill set in order for him to be able to transcend the elite teams, especially deeper in the playoffs. But he already maxes out on all of the intangibles, so he's good there. He just has to improve his overall skill.
He said this, and it gave me great pause and made me think about, can he be the face of the league? And, yesterday, I think it was Kenyon made a comment in passing about, hey, the league is now 25% Europeans and people from other countries.
Right, but what that really means is that they're trying to very slowly increment a globalist aspect into the NBA, which they've been trying to do since the late 80s. But the league knows where their bread is buttered, and that's where the conundrum is going to come in. That's why Zion Williamson is so integral to the future of the NBA. They need that project to work because they know that LeBron James' tenure as the quote-unquote king and the relative ambassador of the league is coming to an end. So they have to start to build up some of these prospective rulers across the NBA landscape and figure out who's who and what's what. You look at Joel Embiid, he seems to be a bit too clownish. You look at Steph Curry, he may be a little bit long in the tooth to hand the kingship, the quote-unquote monarchy, over to him because you're not quite sure how much longer he's going to be a non-real player, a standout player. Kevin Durant might not have the mental to deal with the stress of being the ambassador or the face of the league. Many of these other players, they're just on the come up right now. So the landscape is very similar to what it was in the early 90s after Jordan retired the first time. Can it be Giannis? Possibly it could be Giannis, but I just don't ever see him as being the person that people are going to gravitate to when it comes to his personality. I think that it's going to be more Zion Williamson personality-wise. But when it comes to championships and winning, I do believe that Giannis is going to be able to get to that level because I see all of the intangibles with him. I see the leadership. I also see the fact that Milwaukee seems to have a very good front office that's going to be able to build around him. So as long as he continues on that path, he is going to share in the duties of being the quote-unquote face of the league. So he better prep himself for it.
And I was wondering, is having an American as the face of the league hyper important to the...
Yes, it is. Because we have to understand that for the most part, pop culture across the world is based in black American culture.
To the NBA, can Giannis be the face of the NBA?
Absolutely he can. I don't know where this came from, and I'm sure he heard it from people around.
Where it came from is precedent, brother. It came from precedent. We have yet to see the quote-unquote face of the NBA be someone who isn't so-called American. Now, there was a time period in the mid-'80s where Larry Bird was considered one of the main faces of the NBA, but even at that time, at the time when they were pushing Larry Bird as the best player in the NBA, you also had Magic Johnson, you also had Michael Jordan just coming into the league. And the NBA was still in its relatively nascent stages when it comes to marketing. They were still trying to figure out how are we going to market this league. Understanding when Jordan first came into the NBA, David Stern was against a lot of the marketing tactics that Michael Jordan and Nike were trying to use until he figured out, wow, wait a minute. If we allow Nike to market Jordan however they want, that also means that we get higher ratings. So let's let them do whatever the hell they want to do. That's how that came about. And since then, the most marketable person, the quote-unquote face of the league, has always been a so-called black man, and it's never really been contested, and there's been no real attempt to controvert it, because I mean the people who are involved or in charge of making the money, they know the importance of the quote-unquote black American market, not just as consumers but also as what they call influencers. It's like on social media they call you an influencer. The so-called black man and woman in America, they are the greatest influencers when it comes to pop culture on the planet Earth. So that's where the sentiment comes from. It comes from precedent.
Around them. And, you know, it's kind of like the same thing we always discuss with social media. You can put something up, get 10,000 likes, but you got 2 negative comments and you focused on them too. Like, what's up?
I agree with that.
And maybe he has a couple of friends just like, man, you're not American. They're not going to treat you the same. But then let's go back into the NBA history and see the greats from outside our borders, whether it's Hakeem Olajuwon, whether it's Tim Duncan, whether it's Dirk.
Right, but brother, no disrespect. There's a difference between being considered the best player in the NBA and being the face of the NBA. It's like, you know, they say on a professional football team or a professional basketball team, the leader of the team is not always the best player. It's the same way in the NBA. Yes, Hakeem Olajuwon, Tim Duncan, Dirk Nowitzki were at moments in time considered arguably the best player in the NBA. But their quote-unquote leadership, or that time period where they were considered the best, was also often typified by lower ratings. So that's really what this question is about. Can you be the face of a successful league ratings-wise? And that's very difficult to do. We've seen that from Jordan. We saw that from Magic Johnson in the late 80s. We've seen that from LeBron James.
When at times they were either top 5 or even in MJ's absence, you were trying to push them, galvanize them to be in the face. Dirk, when he won the finals.
Ratings were horrible when Hakeem and Houston won the...
Absolutely.
Yeah, I understand it's not always going to be revenue generating, but in terms...
But that's the point, brother. Remember, the NBA is an entertainment league. It's not just about who has the best skills. And that's really what this question is about. When you say the face of the league, we're not talking about who the best player is. We're talking about who's going to be able to market the league. Who will the league be able to hitch their wagon onto? That's the real point.
In terms of you are the guy, whether it's high or low, I don't see why. I mean, Giannis, a lot of times for the casual fan, has to remind people that he's actually Greek. Like, people don't, they look at him like he's just...
Anytime you try to say it...
I don't think that Giannis has to remind people that he's actually Greek. He speaks with a Greek accent and he has a Greek first name. There's a difference between your citizenship and your origin ethnically. So that's where the confusion comes in.
Say his name, you remember.
Well, that part. But if you look at him, he's like Darius from Cincinnati. Don't he just like another dude? He don't look like he look like he just could represent the league easily to me in a global game.
No, in the global game for sure. I mean, you brought up Hakeem Olajuwon. I think Hakeem Olajuwon's personality is not is not the face of the league. But in '94, '95, like it or not, winning two championships back to back, he was kind of like a face of the league.
Yeah.
Hakeem Olajuwon was easily the best player in the NBA for those 2 years, and it was not particularly close.
Yeah, the league wasn't. Most people would say the league was down.
Well, it was down because of Michael Jordan, right? Because then now you're.
That's the point. That's the difference between being the quote-unquote best player and the face of the league. Now, in Jordan, they had both of those things.
Your fans, it's like Kobe Bryant and Lakers. It's going to take a long time for the Lakers to really accept someone else until they win a whole bunch of championships to erase Kobe's memory. You know, kind of like Magic and then Kobe or Shaq or whatever it is. But then you go, Embiid is the face of a league as a big.
No, I don't see that. Nothing against Joel Embiid, but I'm not quite sure if he has the personality to be a real leader. He's more of a class clown type.
As a big, he's African, right?
A lot of personality.
That's my point.
Probably too much personality.
point.
Joel Embiid, you almost don't even think, you kind of don't think of him as African. You kind of think of him as an American. Again,
You start speaking.
I don't think Joel Embiid is an American. I think of him as someone who has been heavily influenced by American culture. But once again, when I look at him, I see quote-unquote African. And he's someone that has a very heavy accent as well. So can he be someone who carries the league? I'm not quite sure that he's going to have the same issue as a Giannis would when it comes to quote-unquote charisma. But with the accent and also with the personality being overly jocular, he likes to joke around so much, it's very difficult for those guys. Most of the face of the league type players, they have to have a very good balance between charisma and being serious. There does have to be a solemn personality alter to the quote-unquote best player / face of the league, where he's not viewed as just being a clown.
You said.
Well, I don't
but
know.
his personality is pretty
Baby
American.
Whitlock. I get the money from Hulu. You know, yeah. So, I mean, he is African.
I think the face is about, as we all agree on, personality and talent. And if you have the right personality and the right talent, you can have the possibility of being the face of the league. And it doesn't matter how you present yourself, as he said, more Americanized. We're such a global game right now that there's so many type of influences on our game. And
That's very true. But if we were to think about the aspect or the concept of the global game being a network, every network has to have a hub. And the hub of the NBA network is going to be America. There's no doubt about that. And the energy that empowers or powers that hub is going to be the quote-unquote Black American culture. So that's the real question. Can Giannis Antetokounmpo or Joel Embiid or any other foreigner who they're going to be trying to market like a Luka Doncic, can he be someone who can become the quote-unquote face of the NBA? Can they be someone or someones who take that energy that the NBA has always been known for the past 30 years, that quote-unquote Black American energy, and be able to convert it to make the NBA still as appealing while also being who they are? I don't think so.
And I think he is...
But they should remain true to themselves. Let's not let that become a question.
In prime position to be the face of the league, regardless of just how genuine he is. As he said, I'm going to be me, and if I'm going to be the face, I got to do it my way and be me. And I think that's why the game will embrace
And he wants to be great. He's a role model for all of Africa, him and Embiid. And, you know,
No,
listen, the NBA...
But I hear you. He's from Greece.
He's still African.
Gotcha.
Well, here's the issue with that. Because I understand what Whitlock is saying. Yes, Antetokounmpo, he is quote-unquote African by ethnicity. But you'll notice that he tends to talk more about Greece. And even his moniker is the quote-unquote Greek freak. It's not the Nigerian nightmare like Christian Okoye was. So he's claiming more Greece because that's part of the culture that he knows, is the Greek culture. As we all know, there's a certain component of him that also has his quote-unquote West African aspect or background as well. But there is going to be that component there where he traces a part of his lineage culturally back to Greece because that's where he grew up.
Gotcha. Go ahead, man.
He's still African.
Gotcha.
Geography class.
Gotcha, bro.
He's still African. He's from Greece.
Go ahead.
So the boys who won the World Cup, they are they France or they from Africa?
Gotcha.
What are we doing here? Anyway, like I was saying, Embiid and him are African. We are Africans. Okay?
Very African.
Now Katina Mobley is going into his woke shit. All Whitlock is saying is that culturally, Giannis Antetokounmpo has grown up in the cradle of Greece. So that there is going to be some of that energy there. Just like so-called Black Americans, you can claim Africa all you want. Most of you are not going to move back there. Because just from the start, not even speaking from an ethnic aspect, just from a cultural aspect, it's going to be like a slap in the face to even try to live in that way.
African.
But I'm just saying, the NBA, they just opened up where they're expanding African professional basketball.
But we're dismissing his point. And it's like we're jumping, hey, the game is global.
One of the reasons why the point is being dismissed, and I agree with that, Whitlock, one of the reasons why it's being dismissed is because I'm not quite sure if a lot of these brothers on the panel are quite aware of what Giannis is talking about. He's talking about the difference between quote-unquote African culture and quote-unquote Black American culture. And so many so-called Black Americans are caught in that pro-blackity-black vortex that they believe that they can form these fake alliances and affinities with other people of color all across the world on that black shit. We're all black. Other people of color across the world identify with their culture even more than their color. That's why they'll say, I'm from Mali, I'm Nigerian, I'm Ugandan, before they say I'm quote unquote black. That term black being used as a designation for your race is something that has been propagated across the world by the Caucasian from Europe and America. That's why you have people of color across the world who claim that they're black, and they'll use that as some form of identification along with their tribal lineage or the country that they're from, because they've been taught that by the mass global media. But just to get back to the point, that's why a lot of these cats on the panel are missing what Giannis is saying. He's saying that I'm not black American, so I don't have that black American quote unquote swag. I'm not quite sure even how to get it, even if I wanted to live that way.
What Embiid is, or not Embiid, what Giannis is saying is, look, man, we're a global game, but you got to you got to serve home base first. And can he be the face of the NBA here in the United States? And what he's meaning by that also is just like, yeah, you can be the face. Hakeem was for a while, but it wasn't successful.
Ding. That's exactly what the issue is. That's why you have to go back to precedent. There's a difference between being the best player in the league and being the face of the league. Now, in ideal circumstances, the NBA would love it if both of those aspects were in the same person. But that's very rare. Very rare do you get a Michael Jordan, a LeBron James, who could be both the face of the league and the best player in the league. When you look at Tim Duncan, Dirk Nowitzki, Hakeem Olajuwon, even Karl Malone, or certain other players who were considered great but never face of the league material, those eras always typified a downturn in the ratings. There's a reason why the ratings dipped in 93, they dipped in 99, they dipped in the mid-2000s, because those players were viewed as being the best players, and they did not have quote-unquote swag.
And in terms of same standard as Michael Jordan, and I think that's what he's saying. Can he come in behind LeBron James and be the face and carry this league right here at home in America the way LeBron has?
Well,
that's what he's
questioning. Here's another global game comparison when you talk about the sport of boxing. So a U.S. basketball player and the U.S. heavyweight champion used to be it. And then we're seeing now, obviously, when you see a Mexican-born fighter who's not even a heavyweight can now be the face. Whether you Canelo Alvarez, you respect him or not, he's making that money and he's a huge superstar. So what?
Right, but that also proves the point that, I mean, yeah, you could be a foreigner and be considered the biggest name or the quote-unquote best fighter. But is that going to be able to take the sport to new heights? Is boxing where it should be with Canelo Alvarez viewed as being the biggest name in the sport? Is it anywhere like it was 5 years ago with Floyd Mayweather? Of course, the answer is no. And Canelo is highly skilled and has a great resume. But is he the fighter? Is he the ambassador for the sport that Floyd Mayweather is? The answer is no. Can we compare the ratings that Canelo Alvarez's fights get as opposed to the ratings that Floyd Mayweather's fights get? Look at the extravaganza that Floyd Mayweather was able to create with Conor McGregor just a couple years ago, where they broke all records.
But what happens is you can have shifts. No matter where your game has its origins or where it used to be the epicenter, it can shift. And it
shift to where, brother? Whitlock should have cut him off when he said that. Shift to where? Because once again, it's not just about your skills. It's also about the energy that you emit. Can you be someone that enraptures the people globally? Thus far from what we've seen when it comes to the NBA needs a quote-unquote black American player that has that it factor. And believe me, Adam Silver is looking at Zion Williamson as the player who's going to be the face of the league for the next 15 years. He's hoping that the Zion Williamson experiment is a success, because the league, they really need it right now.
It's talent and it's personality, because in the boxing game, it's funny, pound for pound, Errol Spence, pound for pound, Lomachenko. Guys can come from all different places, but you got to have that personality as well.
The point, Marcellus, would be most people would argue that boxing isn't as healthy here at home as it used to be when it was Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, even Mike Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler.
And I would say, except the highest paid athlete every year.
No.
From that sport. So
you can make...
Right, and the highest paid athlete every year has been Floyd Mayweather, the so-called black American. that's really where Whitlock is going. I'm not quite sure if he wants to say it directly, but that's the point. And I'm not quite sure if Marcellus Wiley understands that. Now, you have other sports that are international sports, like soccer, where, of course, you're not going to have a quote-unquote black American as the best participant or representing the apex of charisma or marketability, because most black Americans don't participate in soccer. That's not really the sport that young black children are subjected to, or they get a chance to participate in from when they're young. So when you have a sport like soccer, that's different. But when it comes to the other American sports, whatever it is that the so-called black American participates in, he's expected to be at the forefront of it in order for it to be able to maximize its earning potential.
Make money. You can make money. There's more money to be made, more money thrown into it. But is the sport as relevant here in America, boxing? And again, and is basketball with Giannis? If Giannis replaces LeBron, will basketball be as relevant here in America as it was when LeBron was the favorite?
How did you guys?
No, it will not.
You guys take it when he said he wouldn't practice against KD, LeBron. You think that helps him in terms of being an ambassador for the game, or that hurts him? I think
it's interesting that you bring up that issue, Marcellus Wiley, because I've said that in the past. I think that Giannis Antetokounmpo, he needs to give himself a chance to figure out exactly what he's missing in his game. I get a lot of guys who come into my comment section and they say, well, Giannis is an alpha, that's why he does not want to work out with other players. I don't think that makes you an alpha. I think that alphas understand that there has to be a certain level of subtlety and craftiness in your mind where you're going to try to figure out what the quote-unquote enemy is doing, what your opponent is doing. And at this point in his career, Giannis, at 24 years old, he's missing a lot in his offensive game. And I don't think that it would kill him to engage in a scrimmage or have runs with many of these players. Kawhi Leonard is viewed as being the ultimate introvert. And he works out with LeBron James. He works out with James Harden and those guys. There's nothing wrong with it. That's how you expand your game. It doesn't mean that you have to go with them after the scrimmage to the Luciferian Lodge and drink blood and all that other shit. You know what I'm saying? All you have to do is subject yourself to the highest level competition, which is very obvious to me. Giannis is not doing in the off season. He's just not. But he's going to have to make a quantum leap when it comes to his offensive repertoire.
I think that helps him in his own trajectory and being his own entity and doing it his way. I have respect for guys that want to do it their own personal way and want to have their own ideals be expressed and not follow whatever the stigma or the trend is in training.
Whatever that.
All that's cool as long as you show growth next season. It's not a huge issue for me. Whatever Giannis does is what he does. I think that he's a great force of nature type player. If he wants to go to the next level, he's going to have to do different things. But if he's content to just work out by himself and things of that nature, great. But also understand that the clock is ticking. And in the current NBA landscape, you're not going to be able to hold on to the same team for very long, especially if they see that there's a cap on your potential success as a team. Guys are going to leave. So if you don't expand what you can do, you're going to get the same results.
That ideology is
his way is going to be me, train hard, be the dog that I'm going to be, approach it like if he recognizes with Kobe and that's the guy he looks up to and want to have that type of mentality, cool. But as long as you do it your way, you have the personality to
and he's showing it too.
Guys, let me ask you basketball players this, just to stay in the lane Marcellus is talking about. Listen, when Mike Tyson was dominant in boxing, we can talk about Mike Tyson every day. So we talk about LeBron James every day.
Right.
We talk about the NBA because of LeBron every day. Can the Greek Freak, can Giannis drive that kind of conversation?
No. The answer to that is no. You know it, I know it, and everybody else on the panel knows it. But the real reticence, in saying it publicly and just overtly just saying no is that they're confounded by the difference between the quote-unquote black American energy and the energy of a foreigner. That's where the conundrum comes in.
and relevancy. 100%. That's what he's questioning.
He has to question whether he wants to let people in the way that the face of the game right now is letting them in. And LeBron James has let us into his life, right? 24. But he's not he's a little bit guarded on his lifestyle, on how he performs off the court. Like,
yeah, because that's a part of his culture. In other cultures, they're not taught to just open up their closet and let everybody in, like here in America. These people today, especially on social media, if they taking a shit, they want to put that on Snapchat and Instagram and everything. It's different where he's from, especially how he grew up. So, I mean, people are saying he has to open up his life more. Just be him. Just be you. You don't have to worry about that face of the league shit. If it happens, it happens. Just be concerned about growing your offensive skill set and potentially winning championships.
Like, now you need to let people in to get their...
And LeBron James, too, he set himself up for that. Since he was younger, he's American. He set himself for
he's the chosen one. But he knew he was...
Giannis is saying he was a little skinny thing, and he said, I didn't even know I was going to be this good. Now that he's that good, now he's like, oh, wow, this is coming with me. Now what Sadat is saying, will you accept people inside your life now? Because you're going to get better. You're going to keep getting better. Your jump shot's going to get better. You're going to get stronger. You're going to become a better leader. And he's doing extremely well right now.
He's doing a little bit of it, too. He's doing a little bit. He's trying to show his personality on social media.
Yeah, that commercial he has.
Yeah. And even, like, his Instagram stories and things of that nature, just speaking to people. He's trying to let you in to be able to show you who he is so you fall in love with the basketball player and the person. And I think that's what happens on the field.
I think what he's saying, though, in terms of, like, should I wear suits? Some people, I think the dude probably is like, you know what, I'm a little bit nerdy.
Simple as that. That's what that means. I'm not cool, quote unquote cool, like the black American is. I'm just me. And he should be happy with that. Don't worry about being cool, because at the end of the day, cool is not what's going to get you success in life.
Because he used the word swag, and he looks at Russell Westbrook walking to an arena just wearing any damn...
Yeah, I'm not going to wear that either.
Yeah, there's nothing cool about Russell Westbrook. I mean, no disrespect to him. When I say nothing cool about him, I'm talking about how he dresses. I don't know the brother personally. He seems to be a good family man. All that stuff is great. But his attire has been something that has been promoted by the NBA media for a very long time. They're constantly trying to convince people that he can dress. For whatever reason, they're constantly trying to convince people that Russell Westbrook can dress. And he looks like a blind man who goes into a closet that has no light bulb and just picks out whatever. That's how that dude dresses. He dresses like a damn fool.
But again, if he's watching this, he's looking at you, and he's not going to...
He likes his tweet. I'm pretty sure he'll like that.
And again, I think he's a bit of a nerd.
But you remember the days when we said you had to be in a big market to be the face of the league? Remember it was like Boston, LA Lakers, Magic, Celtics. Then it was Michael Jordan, Chicago. Then LeBron came and was like, well, market doesn't matter because you can go to Cleveland and do that. So Milwaukee can't be his excuse. It really has to be his persona. Not even you. It's a persona. You got to... Floyd Mayweather went from pretty boy to money Mayweather. You got to choose to be that guy. The word persona now. All right, coming up.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. That was a very good conversation, and we'll see if Giannis Antetokounmpo will attempt to become someone else in order to do what he believes needs to be done to fulfill that vocation or that job of being the face of the league, or will he just let things come to him? Either way, I believe that he's going to receive a lot of help when it comes to that mantle of being the ambassador of the NBA. I think that he'll probably have to assume it 5 years or so from now, and he's probably going to have to share it with Zion Williamson. So peace.